Hello Internet, my name is Damian Michaels, but you can call me Blue, and welcome back to another Thursday Night Magic Deck Tour. If you're new here, or you just want a refresher, these videos are pretty simple. First, we start by going over the commander, what it does, how it functions, and a brief, broad overview of what the deck itself wants to do. Next, we go over into the deck itself, talk about each and every individual card in the deck organized into different categories based on the deck's synergy and strategy, and finally, we get into a full primer of the deck, talking about how the deck functions in its entirety, all of the intricacies, small synergies and combos if any, and how to properly function the deck, as well as its overall strengths and weaknesses so you know what to look out for as you're playing. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that all of our Deck Tour decks are available for sale on our website at ThursdayNightMagic.com. Use code TNM10 for 10% off your first order. Now let's get started with the commander.
Alright, so first we're going to get into the commander. For today's deck tour, we are playing Edric, Spymaster of Trest. He is 1 green-blue for a 2/2 elf rogue, and whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may draw a card. So this is a symmetrical effect where if any player deals damage to an opponent, they draw a card. Doesn't matter if it's player 1, player 3, player 2, doesn't matter. As long as it's not you, someone will draw a card. So how we break this is that we build our deck to play as many small things as possible that are unblockable or flying or evasive in some other way, so that way as we start attacking with our creatures, we can draw a whole bunch of cards, and our opponents fall behind because they don't have the ability to apply the pressure that we do to keep our hand full and draw a whole bunch of cards. That being said, there's not a whole lot more to say about Edric. He's pretty straightforward, just a whole bunch of small evasive things that draw us cards. So let's get straight into the deck, starting with the lands and ramp so we can get it out of the way. Alright, so lands and ramp, pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot here to talk about. I'm just doing it first so we can get it out of the way. So there's a couple dual lands, Thornwood Falls, Woodland Stream, Simic Growth Chamber, and Evolving Wild, and a whole bunches of basics, islands and forests galore. And then we don't have a ton of ramp because most of our deck is so cheap, but we do have some creatures that allow us to ramp just a little bit. We have Llanowar Elves, green mana 1/1, add 1 of any color, or add green, not any color, that's not Birds of Paradise. Next we have Elvish Pioneer, green mana for a 1/1 Elf Druid. When it comes into play, we can put a basic land into play tapped. Skyshroud Ranger, green mana for a 1/1 Elf, and we can tap it to put a land from our hand into play, activate only as a sorcery. Coiling Oracle, green and a blue for a 1/1 Snake Elf Druid. Whenever it enters, we reveal the top card of our library. If it's a land, we put it onto the battlefield, otherwise put it into our hand. Mare Leaf Pixie, just a green and a blue for a 2/2 flyer that adds green or blue. And Growth Spiral, green and a blue instant, draw a card, and we can put a land from our hand onto the battlefield. We're going to move this out of the way, and that's our land and ramp out of the way. Next, we're going to look at our cards that care about drawing cards or cards that draw us more cards. This deck is so focused around drawing cards with Edric that we want as many ways to draw cards as possible or to interact with drawing cards, so that way we can get as much value out of that as we can. So first we have Ominous Seas, 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever we draw a card, put a 4 shadow counter on Ominous Seas, and we can remove 8 4 shadow counters to make an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token, and it has cycling just in case we don't want the Kraken for some reason. Next we have Lorescale Coatl, 1 green blue for a 2/2 snake. Whenever we draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And Horizon Chimera, 2 blue green for a 3/2 Chimera with flash, flying, and trample, and whenever we draw a card, we gain a life. We're going to be drawing a lot of cards, so this is going to gain us a lot of life. Next, this is not card draw, these next 2 cards, but they are card advantage, and so I didn't know where else to put them. But first we have Reclaim, green mana for an instant. We can put an instant, we can put any card from our graveyard on top of our library. And Regrowth, 1 and a green, sorcery, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So it goes to hand instead of the top of the library. Next we have Spectral Sailor, a single blue mana for a 1/1 Spirit Pirate with flash, flying, and we can pay 3 and a blue to draw a card. Next is River Hoopoe, blue and a green for a 1/3 bird with flying, and we can pay 3 blue and a green to gain 2 life and draw a card. It's pretty good. Next is Ninja the Devours, 3 and a blue for a 2/2 human ninja with ninjutsu, so we can return an unblocked creature back to our hand and put this into play attacking as if it was the unblocked creature, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we get to draw a card, so even more card draw with Edric. Next, we have Lu Jun, Scholar General, 2 blue for a 1/3 human soldier with horsemanship, which is basically flying, but for horses. And whenever Lu Jun deals combat damage to an opponent, no, deals damage to an opponent, it is not combat damage. I don't think that'll be relevant, but, you know, keep that in mind. This does not specify combat damage, so you could, like, fight a creature. Well, it says to an opponent, so fight your opponent's face and draw a card. Next is Bided of Thassa. So this is literally just more card draw. 2 double blue. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, we draw a card. We can pay 1 and a blue and tap it to make our opponent's creatures attack this turn if able, but that rarely comes up. It's just if you want to tap your opponent's board down, force them to attack, so that way you can get in for damage on your next turn and guarantee you draw cards off of that individual. Next, we have Reconnaissance Mission. 2 double blue for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, and then it has cycling. So it's Bided of Thassa, just instead of the attack clause, it has cycling instead. And then finally, we have Keeper of Fables, 3 double green for a 4/5 cat, and whenever 1 or more non-human creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. There's not a whole lot of humans in this deck. Most of them are birds or weird things from Ravnica or elves or something. So not a whole lot of humans. This is almost always going to draw you a card. All right, so to this point, we've just been talking a lot about drawing cards, but we need creatures to be able to draw those cards because of Edric and the card draw that we just talked about. So here's all of our creatures that are going to help us get in damage so we can draw some cards. First up is Cloudfin Raptor. It's a single blue mana for a 0/1 bird mutant with flying, and it has Evolve. So yes, it's a 0/1, but Evolve lets it grow anytime a creature enters that has power or toughness greater than this creature. So this is constantly going to grow throughout the game. Next, we have a Slitherblade, 1 and a 2 for a blue mana Naga Rogue, and it can't be blocked. Super easy. Next is Merfolk Spy, blue mana for a 1/1 with Island Walk, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player reveals a card at random from their hand. Pretty good way to just get a little bit of information. Next is Wingcrafter, blue mana for a 1/1 human wizard with Soul Bond, and as long as it's paired with another creature, both of those creatures have flying. Next is Fairy Miscreant, single blue mana for a 1/1 fairy rogue with flying, and whenever it enters the battlefield, if you control another creature named Fairy Miscreant, draw a card. Next is Triton's Shorestalker, single blue mana for a 1/1 merfolk rogue, and it can't be blocked. Easy peasy. Next is Jace's Phantasm, single blue for a 1/1 illusion with flying, and it gets +4/+4 as long as an opponent has 10 or more cards in their graveyard. And next is Fairy Seer, single blue mana for a 1/1 fairy wizard with flying, and whenever it enters, we get to scry 2. Super easy way to set up our next couple of turns. Next is Cloud Sprite, single blue mana for a 1/1 fairy, and it has flying, and it can only block creatures with flying. Next is Mist Cloaked Herald, single blue mana for a 1/1 merfolk warrior, that it can't be blocked. Easy peasy. Next is Terramander, single blue mana for a 1/1 salamander drake with flying, and you can pay 7 and a blue to adapt 4, so that's just put 4 +1/+1 counters on it if it has no +1/+1 counters on it. And then it costs 1 less to activate for each instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. Next is Hypnotic Sprite, single blue mana for a 1/1 Siren with Bestow 5 double blue, so you can play it as an aura instead of as a creature, and it becomes enchanted to whatever creature you target. And then if the targeted creature becomes removed, it just becomes a creature. And then it has flying, and you control the enchanted creature if you cast it for its Bestow cost, and the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has flying. Next is Artificer's Assistant, 1 mana for a 1/1 flyer, whenever you cast a historic spell, scry 1. Next is Zephyr Sprite, 1 blue mana for a 1/1 fairy with flying. Wasteland Viper's next for a green mana 1/2 snake with Death Touch, and it has Blood Rush, so you can pay a green and discard it to give target creature +1/2 and Death Touch until end of turn. And Spire Tracer, green mana for a 1/1, and it can't be blocked except by creatures with flying or reach, so it doesn't have flying, but it has the flying text. Next is Treetop Scout, green mana for a 1/1 elf, and it can't be blocked except by creatures or flying. Creatures with flying, so same thing, except it doesn't have the reach clause. Next is Moss Viper, green mana for a 1/1 snake with Death Touch. And Ginger Brute, 1 mana for a 1/1 food golem with haste, and you can pay 1 to give it to where it can't be blocked except by other creatures with haste, and sacrifice Ginger Brute, gain 3 life. Because it is a food after all. Next is Tetsuka Umezawa Fugitive, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human rogue, and creatures you control with power 1 or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. I don't know why I messed that up. I play Tetsuka all the time on Arena. I love this card. Next is Wharf Infiltrator, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 human horror with Skulk, And whenever Wharf Infiltrator deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token. Next is Fairy Vandal, 1 and a blue for a 1/2 fairy rogue with flash and flying. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, you can put a +1/+1 counter on Fairy Vandal. So really easy way to grow this really late into the game as you draw your cards every turn. Next is Spike Tail Hatchling, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Drake with flying, and you can sacrifice it to counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. Next is Ice Feather Aven, green and a blue for a 2/2 bird shaman with flying, and morph 1 blue green. And whenever Ice Feather Aven is turned face up, you may return another target creature to its owner's hand, so just a good way to bounce a blocker or something before you go into combat. Next is Jessian Infiltrator, blue and a green for a 2/2 human rogue, and it can't be blocked. And finally is Elusive Krasis, 1 blue-green for a 0/4 fish mutant. It can't be blocked, and it has Evolve. So whenever another creature with power or toughness greater than it enters, we put a +1/+1 counter on it. So just a really good way to grow this into the late game. And that's all of our creatures. Well, most of them anyway. There's a couple more we'll talk about here in just a second. Alright, next we're going to go over all of our miscellaneous support for what we're trying to do. There's not a lot here. This is just how we're going to be able to close out the game after we draw all of our cards and build up our massive board state. So first we have Might of the Masses. It's a single green mana for an instant. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature we control. So if we have a giant board of creatures, this is going to make one creature really huge. We can probably kill someone with this. Next we have Scale Up, single green mana for a sorcery. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a green worm with base power and toughness 6/4, and you can overload it for 4 double green. So we can use this on just one single creature and make it a 6/4, but the idea is to use this on all of our creatures and make it difficult for our opponent to effectively block. So we can pay 6 mana and we just have a giant board of all of these unblockable creatures or these flying creatures that can just get in, and they can't really do much about it without answering the Scale Up. Next is Biomass Mutation, X double hybrid blue-green for an instant. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX until end of turn. So this just scales really well into the late game. If we have a whole bunch of mana and we have a bunch of unblockable creatures and everything, same just like Scale Up, we can pay a whole bunch of mana into this Biomass Mutation to make all of our creatures huge, and just attack with everything, especially with our unblockable creatures, makes it really fun. Basically going to be the same explanation for all of these. The next is Predatory Rampage, 3 double green for a sorcery. Creatures you control get +3/3 until end of turn. Each creature your opponent control, block this turn if able. And Overrun, 2 triple green for a sorcery. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. And finally is Enraze Forerunners, 5 triple green for a 7/7 boar with vigilance, trample, and haste. And when it enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain vigilance and trample until end of turn. And our final pile, this is just our interaction, how we can answer our opponent's stuff and help keep our board protected. First we have Kenra's Transformation, 1 and a green for an aura enchant creature. Whenever it enters we draw a card, and then enchanted creature loses all abilities and becomes a 3/3 green elf creature token. Next is Reclamation Sage, 2 and a green for a 2/1 elf shaman. When it enters we destroy an artifact or enchantment. Next is Trigon Predator, 1 blue-green for a 2/3 beast with flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player we get to blow up an artifact or enchantment they control. Next is Relic Crush, 4 and a green for an instant, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and then up to 1 other artifact or enchantment. Next is Dispel, single blue mana for an instant, counter target instant spell. Negate, 1 and a blue, counter target non-creature spell. Quench, 1 and a blue, counter target spell unless the controller pays 2. Disdainful Stroke, 1 and a blue, counter target spell with converted mana cost 4 or greater. Memory Lapse, 1 and a blue, counter target spell, and then put it on top of its owner's library instead of putting it into the graveyard. And Stratus Dancer, that's 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Jin Monk with flying, and it has Megamorph, 1 and a blue, so you can play it face down for 3, and then turn it face up for 1 and a blue later with a +1/+1 counter on it. And then whenever it's turned face up, counter target instant or sorcery spell. And next, finally, is Frilled Mystic, double green, double blue for a 3/2 elf lizard wizard with flash. Whenever it enters the battlefield, counter target spell.
So now that we finished talking about the deck, let's get into the deck's overall strategy, strengths, weaknesses, and game plan, much more in depth than what we talked about earlier. So our overall plan is to play evasive creatures and get in with them so that way we can draw cards with Edric, Biden of Thassa, Reconnaissance Mission, etc. So we can have more cards in hand, we can have some protection, we can have some more threats, we can deploy things and keep applying pressure. That's our broad game plan. Our smaller, more focused game plans are to pinpoint which opponent we think is going to be the biggest issue for us. Because remember, Edric lets everyone draw cards as long as they deal damage to someone that isn't you. So if they're dealing damage to one of your other opponents, then they're going to draw cards and they're going to have more cards in hand. So that's why you want to make sure that you have cards in hand too, so you don't fall behind on the value train. Someone else who's playing an aggro deck is going to have an easier time drawing a lot of cards than someone who's more of a control deck. So you may want to focus in on the aggro player because they may try to target you once they have a whole bunch of cards in hand and they've established a board presence. They may go after you to prevent you from drawing more cards and to prevent your other opponents from drawing cards. So it's best to try to keep a focus on that one individual who's probably going to apply more pressure than you, so that way you can apply the pressure to them and make it more difficult for them to actually keep attacking and drawing cards themselves. And if there's not somebody at the table like that, then go after whoever you think is going to disrupt your game plan the most, which would probably be the control player who's going to have a lot of board wipes and other things to disrupt your game plan. But that's what your counter spells are for, so you can back up your board state and try to protect your creatures as you keep getting in for damage. Eventually, the end goal is to play something like a Biomass Mutation or a Scale Up on Overload, so that way you can make your entire board a whole bunch of big beefy beaters, and so you can get in for a whole bunch of damage with your meaty men slapping man meat in your Magic game.
Anyway, that's everything for today. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to tap that like button. It adds 1 mana to the YouTube algorithm, and I greatly appreciate it. While you're down there, feel free to subscribe as well. It's completely free, you can always change your mind later, and it lets us know that we're doing something right, we're making content you want to watch, and you're enjoying. If you have a suggestion, or there's a deck you want to see on the website, leave a comment and we'll see what we can do. There will be a link to today's deck in the description below. Use code TNM10 for 10% off your first order. I'll cast Reanimate, targeting the Phage in my graveyard. When she enters, the video will end due to her trigger, and I'll see you next time.